A very good evening and welcome to Talk to Sven. Firstly, allow me to thank you for tuning in and thank you for the support and comments of the last weeks. As usual, allow me to welcome Salma Moses, our sign language interpreter. Salma, welcome. And of course, my partner over the last weeks, Denver Kisting, who is exploring with myself purposeful leadership. Today, we'll be talking about genius language, and the whole concept behind genius. For that purpose, we have invited, again, my Human Capital Director, Berthold Mukuahima, and our CEO of the Ultramonist Group, Wessie van der Westhuizen. Genius is something which is in all of us. It is something that we use especially when we want to achieve something special. You'll be seeing throughout the show these geniuses that we have identified in ourselves from Berthold and Wessie and myself, how we operate when we are at work. Now, these are words as simple as sometimes when, imagine you hang on a cliff and you have to get onto the cliff and then you have to say, I can do it. I will do my utmost. I will focus on this. There will not be time to argue and think about the world at that time, but you will do everything to get over this. So genius is something you either can activate only by default, or you can bring it to the fore and really manage it and bring it out to use it every day. So Denver, genius is something which I believe makes the difference between someone that wants to do something extraordinary or someone that just calls on it when he really needs. And I think this whole concept is something what we in our group have really put a lot of focus on in development. On genius, what's your thinking? And welcome again, Denver.
Good evening, Sven. Good evening, Berthold. Good evening, Wessie. And of course, good evening to our beautiful Salma. And good evening to the viewer. I hear you, and I'm super excited about how one can actually discover that, leverage it, and make sure that your contribution to the world, to the planet, to the society is absolutely extraordinary. But to help us unpack this, I'd like to start with you, Wessie, please. We've heard in the introduction how Sven speaks about genius being within all of us. But from your perspective, exactly what does it mean? What on earth is genius?
Yeah, good evening, Denver. Yeah, so genius for me is really a state of mind. It is a choice that as an individual you make depending on what it is you want to achieve. And normally when you look at a genius and the language of genius, it's always something extraordinary. It's never something business as usual. It's never something mediocre. It's really something that, completely at a different level that you want to achieve, that you want to make possible, and that you want to lead people into. So it is really a state of mind and the language one uses for yourself in order not to lose focus of the objective or the outcome that you want to achieve.
Speaking about the language, and I'm happy you're saying that the words we speak have power. So it's all about how you talk about and to yourself and to others.
Absolutely. So genius language, and I mean, you can imagine as a young boy when you might have borrowed some fruit from your neighbor, big dog came running to you, a wall 3 meters high. You were not running to that wall to say, I'm not going to jump over it. I can't jump over it.
Yes.
You said, come hell or high water, I will jump over it.
I'm already on the other side.
And it's really the conversation you're having with yourself, motivating yourself and making it possible for yourself even before it happens.
Wow. Berthold, I'm hearing Wessie say that being genius is a choice one makes. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And maybe to build on to what he says, to me, genius is a way of thinking. It's a pattern of thinking that is specific to an individual. So if you want to achieve something and you tell yourself, I'm going to do it, I'm going to scale that wall, or I'm going to achieve that particular objective and so on. So it's a choice that you make. So I agree with that as well. Yeah.
But is it that simple?
No, it's not simple, because a lot of time we wonder how we have achieved a particular objective or something. How did I achieve that? Or if somebody asks you, how did you achieve something that you are proud of? And then you start asking yourself, but how? But then the person will start asking you or interrogating you, what were you thinking? What were you telling yourself? And from that, a pattern of thinking will emerge. And if you can use that pattern continuously all the time, then you will be in your genius most of the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not that obvious, but you can discover it through some techniques.
Sven, what I hear Berthold say is that pattern of thinking, if you decode the process that went into something, you can actually discover and or unleash and capitalize on the genius.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as Berthold said, when you are in this process of integration of really identifying what your genius is, that it's at play when you perform and you want to achieve great things. Firstly, the process is highly cumbersome and it's highly, what do you call that? It's a fairly painful exercise by where you go through the questions of why. So why and how have you achieved it? Why are you proud about it? So the whole question of how and why leads you to a world of things that you use in you that you don't know that you have. And then once you went through that process and you look at that, yes, I know it's me, but you actually reintroduce yourself to yourself. And that's the interesting part about genius. And I think you're also very passionate about genius. I heard earlier, being ingenious or not, as you mentioned earlier as well, it's a choice. But the benefit of living in genius and really making an effort about and to know more about you, it is just like unstoppable. It's just a different world.
But one needs to be intentional about it. I think we've also spoken about this during earlier conversations. The quality of the questions you actually ask yourself and the transparency and the honesty coupled with that. So how do you go about asking the why? How do you go about asking the how, and how honest you are with yourself?
Well, that's at the end of the day, I mean, you said it's again a choice. But the people that we have engaged to do those interviews with us, they know their job. And if you think you can get away with this simple answer, there's news for you. And there's times when you actually want to beat up the person that's interviewing you.
Wow.
Because, I mean, it's like, thank you, it's enough. I thought I have answered. And you have not. And you have not. And you discover that there's a world behind what we present to the outer, to what sits within us. Now, to break down those barriers, it's very, very personal sometimes, and you're trying to protect it, and that's why it's a really painful process.
But one needs to dig deeper in order to get access to that genius and unleash it to the world.
Yeah.
Wessie, I'm sure viewers are wondering this evening, do I have genius within me? Is it your conviction that we all have genius within ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each and every single person has got genius. When you think about genius, it is really a self-study of you when you are in your best version. It's again, a state of mind and how you talk to yourself and how you see the world, understanding, what you need to do in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And again, genius is a language, is a mindset that delivers extraordinary outcomes. It's not something just, normal. It's something that you really put all your effort in, all your thinking in. And it's a self-study. It's a self-study of you when you are in your best version. Because, we are, people behave sometimes because what I think people would want me, how I need to behave. But we forget about who we really are. And who we really are is your best version. Your genius only exists in you. Didn't come with a title or with a friendship. You were born with it. And it's really discovering that for yourself, how you look, what you say to yourself, and what your actions are when you are in your best version.
It's about who you inherently are.
Yes.
Yeah. Sven, we're also all about the visual impact here at Talk to Sven. So I believe we'll take a look at a clip to demonstrate what it is that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. This evening we're unpacking the concept of genius. Sven, there's no cap, despite a cap on public gatherings at the moment, on the number of times one is allowed to say wow. So I just want to say wow. That seems like an incredibly powerful journey. Reflecting on it a bit, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, obviously looking at obviously these things before COVID, when I look at that, well, missing the time when we can be as close as that, but yeah, the time will come again. But honestly, you get really emotional to seeing all of that conference. I mean, we just chatted before. It's the first time the American company Gap International is doing it outside US, in Namibia, in Africa, and where this is a 3-day session on focusing on getting the best out of you, identifying the genius in you. And I think we're seeing some up on the screen at the moment. But these are the things that, as an example, these are all examples from Wessie, Berthold, and myself, how we tick. That came out of that conference as an example now.
Berthold, please talk to us about this conviction that Wessie was talking about earlier, that Sven also referred to, that there's genius within all of us. If I still have any doubts, please convince me about it.
Yeah, to me it was a major discovery because I thought geniuses, or the concept of genius are reserved for those smart guys, who know science and mathematics and this sort of stuff, And only to realize that each one of us on the planet actually have genius in themselves. And I want to demonstrate it by this example. If you ask yourself or reflect on how did I achieve something and what was my thought process? Each one of us have achieved something. It could be to buy a house or to save money to buy a car and whatever and whatever. Now, if you ask yourself the question, what were the thinking processes behind this stand that by a year's time I want to do X, Y, and Z? And secondly, what was that inner voice? What is it that I was telling myself about that goal that is in the future? And all of us, if you look at it, have done something like that. But if you can discover that and discern that pattern that, okay, actually when I want to do something or I want to achieve something, this is how I think, and this is what I say to myself. And if you can do that and isolate that, then you can actually capitalize on that ability to do things going forward, whatever the challenge is in front of you. And that's what I'm saying. But each one of us, I want to emphasize, is blessed with that ability. A lot of time we just don't know about it.
Sure. Wessie, I also hear Berthold say it's about interrogating the limiting beliefs that we might have about ourselves. Please talk to us about your journey in discovering your inner genius.
Yeah, I think Sven alluded to it earlier. It was for me, so we've done it when we were in America a couple of years ago, the first time. And it was really, really frustrating. At one point in time, I said to Sven, if this person's going to ask me one more time why, I'm going to do something to him. But it is really such an interesting process. I mean, I think all of us, we know who we are. And when we think about who we are as persons, we think about the things that we've achieved in life, what we mean to other people, the impact that we make in other people's lives, etc. But we don't necessarily understand why we did that and how we did that. And genius is all about understanding your own why and how you go about achieving these things. And that's really the big discovery. It's the why and the how. And not necessarily only what we've achieved, but to understand why we've achieved it and how we've achieved it is where genius lives. And that discovery is huge.
So and I think the why also speaks to the essence of doing something and how it resonates within you. Talk to us about your journey in discovering Sven Time's genius.
Yeah, I think many people have asked me before, but Sven, how did you do it and how? And often I said, I don't really actually know. Sometimes I don't know how I did it. And I just felt that a lot of these things has just to do with authenticity. It has to do with the passion about things. And of course it has to do with this, and the whole honesty about these things. But when you unpack that, what's sitting behind, what is driving that? And then obviously the purpose of why I'm doing it, my personal purpose is giving life to people. And some of my genius words, which you will have seen on the screen just now, is like, I believe everybody has a dream. I believe that everybody has the capability of doing something. Now that gives me the confidence in my people, in my colleagues, in the entire organization. That gives me this comfort of that I know everything has got it, and I know there's every potential, and I know that it's just a few that just don't know it. That's all it is, And if you can explain to people can you imagine if you say to yourself, I don't know what I don't know? You open up. So this whole genius to me is this whole world. And I said before the show to Wessie and Berthold, I've just discovered I can't imagine a world without that anymore. And that doesn't mean just living it actively. Before we were sort of you live it sort of passively. You call it upon it when it's needed. But to really actively manage it, and it's painful because it impacts you have to put energy into it to allow you not to be drawn into something which is not genius. If you have a conversation or a disagreement with someone, to then look beyond saying, oh, this person still got potential and this person still is a great person. It's not, it takes convincing.
Yes.
But if you put yourself in that state, it's almost impossible to have a disagreement or a different view on that person.
I think it also involves disrupting the way we have been thinking that might be very stale thus far. The other thing that you mentioned, I think it's incredible to have such clarity about your purpose, to bring and give life to people. Berthold, I'd like to hear about your journey.
Yeah, my journey has really been an amazing journey. I believe that there's goodness out there in people, and that one must give hope to people, so that people can achieve great things, and so that we can create a good country, a good nation, a good society. So it's things that drive me in a lot of things that I'm doing, but I discovered it through this genius interrogation process on why I do the things I do. Many a time I know what I do. Sometimes I don't know how I achieve it, but the why I do the things that I do, I discovered it through this thing, and that is what actually give meaning and purpose and energy to me. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wessie, I talked to Swin, we're very passionate about purposeful leadership. I'd like to hear from you, having discovered your genius, despite the challenging start initially, how has it transformed your life as a leader?
Yeah, no, it's it is really mind-blowing. My personal purpose and my genius is to create the environment for people to be the best that they can possibly be.
Wow.
And as a leader, we sometimes think that we need to take the lead in how we do things and what we do, but we forget about, purposeful leaders creating the environment for people to be the best that they can possibly be, and through that, empowering people, trust people, allow people to make mistakes, allow people to be free, allow people to dream, allow people to be their best version, in other words, their genius. And the result of any business, whether it's a financial result, whatever the result is of a business, is a result of leadership. And we truly believe that through genius leadership and through being a purposeful leader, everything else will come automatically. People think about leaders and they think about financial results and they see it in two different worlds. But one is really only a result of the other, or in the absence of the other. And that's why for us, purposeful leadership and leading through our genius is really to make the impossible possible for people, but through people, and not doing it ourselves.
So the impossible is actually possible.
Absolutely.
What I also heard you say earlier about allowing people to be their best versions and to express themselves and to be their own genius, that sounds like a lot of freedom within leadership, and very often people don't understand it. How can you allow your team to be free?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so it is really, again, it's not something that comes natural to people unless you have discovered that and you've unlocked it for yourself. People will look at a leadership like that to say, but this leader or this guy allows his people to do whatever they want. Instead, and we call that liability language, because what it really is setting people free, allowing them to be their best versions. And when you look at it through a genius lens, the language on the one part is allowing people to be their best versions. And when you look at it from a liability point of view, people will say, well, these guys are allowed to do anything. And
Which is not true.
It's completely not true.
Yes.
But then again, we've also learned through genius that each and every one of us has got a view. And you need to decide whether that view is true for you or not.
And don't entertain liability language.
Don't entertain liability language because it just stands in your way. It delays your own process to achieve the unthinkable.
It's unnecessary noise that we need to shut up.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So when we know that we live under very difficult times at the moment, I'd like to hear from you what difference, what impact will capitalizing on one's genius make to help transform our society?
Yeah, I think I will touch, I will touch on the topic Wessie just now raised. Too often, leadership people understand leadership as driving results, and so often, and I think this is one of the biggest corporate failures or reasons for corporate failures over the years, that leadership is associated with the results. Now, leadership, and that's what we also talked yesterday in some preparation for a session that's going to come, is that it's as aggressive as that. You have to move house. You have to leave the house where you manage financial results or outcomes. You have to move to the house where you focus on leadership. Leadership, and that's maybe the answer that I want to give to you, is that great leaders lead people into success. How little times do we have reports of what have leaders done to motivate and take along other people to be in their best version? And I think if we as leaders realize it is for us to report back to our organization or countries or whatever, that is what have I done as a leader to bring the best version out of my people for them to produce the results we're looking for. I think if we can think about that post-COVID, oh boy, we'll overcome our challenges very quickly.
Land of the brave and land of the genius.
Land of the genius.
Yes. Berthold, I'd like to hear from you. How can our impact on society and our communities be better if we tap into genius as we slowly start wrapping up?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that I think there are two trajectories that one can follow. Is either genius or liability. So if, for example, a person believes that something cannot be done, cannot be achieved, then that's a cul-de-sac, that's a dead end. But if you believe that something can be done, that open possibilities, and from possibilities, you start seeing opportunities. And that is, I think, post-COVID, we must think and see possibilities, because from possibility, we'll see opportunities. Otherwise, if we go this liability route, it's a cul-de-sac, it's a dead end, it's a dark tunnel. So that is what I think as a country, as companies, we should think about what is possible. We are where we are with COVID. What is possible within this environment? Then we start seeing opportunities.
Very well.
Yeah.
Wessie earlier, with incredible conviction and with a straight face, said that the impossible is possible. Do you also share that view?
Yes, it starts with thinking
Yeah.
and what you tell yourself. Because if the impossible was not possible, we would not be where we are today. Yeah, and I'm sure also with COVID, we can overcome this because the impossible is possible.
Wessie, as we wrap up, purposeful leadership is impactful leadership. Please talk to us about how we can use genius to transform this beautiful society of ours.
Yeah, so how we can use genius to transform the society is really to change the mindset of people, to give people hope, for people to trust in themselves, for people to trust in what is possible. And, a very critical point is always to not lose focus, not take your eye off what the outcome is that you want to achieve. Because the moment you start focusing on all the challenges that you might be faced with, that moment you lose focus. And you should just erase that out of your vision and just continue to focus on what it is you want to achieve and mobilize everyone through their own thinking and their own language to achieve that.
But I think it's also important not to be hooked on one particular outcome. If you keep an open mind and open heart, the outcome could be even bigger, even better.
The outcome can be whatever you want it to be.
Beautiful. Swain, we need to wrap up.
Yep.
your final words and remarks on Genius and how we can actually leverage this gem to transform our society.
Yeah, then I think a lot has been said in our conversation just now. I think one thing's for sure, we need to allow ourselves to be open to say, I don't know what I don't know. The other thing is, nothing's impossible. I mean, it's like Berthold mentioned earlier. I mean, whatever we have today was not possible before, and so forth. So whether it was flying, driving, whatever. So we need to take confidence of it. We've done it before. And that's genius in itself. I've done it before. We've done it before. Why not again? And that's the important part about, which I want to share with everyone. So, what a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed it. I can feel my blood is still up, very much raised. I would like to thank Wessie for your contribution to the show, and Berthold once again, which was really inspiring. And if you look at their geniuses that have scrolled up, or we call it the maximes within the genius, you can see why we are such a great team. And my partner, of course, Denver. I mean, if you hear Denver, how passionate he is about the topic, and even with our pre-talks, Denver's really an inspiration to this show. Denver, thank you very much. And Selma, I can see her arms are moving faster than normal. She's really doing an awesome job in terms of doing the sign language interpretation. And I'd like to thank everyone and see you next week. And think about nothing is impossible.